Welcome back to the Pretty Awkward Entrepreneur Podcast, our couples combo segment. But this is a little bit different and we are really excited, a little nervous, but I feel really safe because I have the one and only Hannah Deindorfer here to talk all things sex and money and marriage and abundance and pleasure. It's going to be beautiful. Welcome back to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you. Bow chicka wow wow.
I know. I'm like, oh my God, we're talking about sex. I'm so excited though. And when I was thinking about like this topic, because Mike and I have been wanting to get a little bit more vulnerable, more honest about our experience. And I was like, how do we have this conversation? Just the two of us. I feel like we need a third party. And you're immediately the person I thought. I was like, oh my gosh, she's such an expert in this. And I feel like could really guide us in a way to share our story and also your methods because they've been so powerful. So anyway, I am really pumped and I would love you just to give a little rundown of who you are for those who are newer to you and haven't maybe listened to the last episode that you were on and how you got into what you do right now. Who is Hannah?
Oh, wow. What a broad, complicated question.
I know.
I'm Hannah Deindorfer. My clients call me a fairy godmother. And the way that I create magic in the world is in transformation and intimacy. And specifically for women and couples who struggle with desire discrepancy, like one person wants it more than the other, mismatched libidos, challenges with communication. And ultimately, I see sex and intimacy as a vehicle for personal development. That's my take. Yeah.
I love that. And I know a huge theme that we want to talk about is how the more you connect with your own pleasure and pleasure with others, the more abundance you call in, the more money you make. And we have a lot of proof just in our own relationship with that too. So I'm excited to talk that through. So the first thing I kind of wanted to talk about, actually, I didn't tell you this starting, but I know you know this in and out, so I didn't need to prep, is I'd love you to just quickly talk about your method, your framework, the infinite sex method. I think you're calling it intimacy method now?
Infinite intimacy method.
Intimacy method. I love it. If you can talk that through really quickly, because I think it almost sets the stage for why when you have your own pleasure, you can create all this abundance.
Yeah. So the gap that I saw in the intimacy space was that people were saying, okay, we have these problems with sex. And then they rush to solutions that are trying to solve a symptom. Like I see intimacy issues as a symptom, not as the actual core problem. And the problem is deeper. It's related to insecurities. It's related to beliefs that you have about yourself. It's related to trauma and your past history about sex. And so things like dick pills or libido enhancing medications or even fixing hormones is not always what's at the root of the cause of intimacy issues. And also adding toys or adding spice, using different positions, et cetera, those also are fixing the symptom and not the root. And so the model that I came up with starts with relationship to self being the core, the foundation. The second phase of that being an individual relationship with sexuality. So once you've gained a deep connection to yourself and your body, then what is your relationship to sex as an individual, as a whole person, separate of your partner? And then what comes up when you're in relationship to others? The third phase is in examining your relationships with your parents. What was intimacy like as a child? And what comes up when you start to get close to other people? What comes up when you're triggered? And then the fourth phase of that is sex with other people, which is the thing people try to jump to right away without taking care of all that other stuff first. And when you build a foundation of all of those other things, the sex that you have with your partner is amazing. And it feeds back into step number one. Really great intimacy with someone else feeds back into your relationship with yourself.
I remember when you first explained this to me when we were in person and we were kind of mapping it out and putting like a nice bow on it. You've already been doing this for a long time. Like this is something that was already in you and a process you've been taking your clients through. But I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. And I don't know about you, but when she was explaining that, I was like, that's pretty much what we did. When I look back at it, like the process, the first coach we ever hired, well, it wasn't a coach, it was a therapist.
The first?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
we did exactly that. We jumped to number 4 and we hired a sex therapist.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget this. Before we even got married. This is the first time we're talking about this on the podcast. I
Was
think.
it was, yeah.
It was before we got married.
Right.
And we were like, exactly like you said, okay, this is the issue. And I just remember too, and this is no shade on people who are really, really, really young doing this work. Like we're really young. But she was like, I think younger than us.
I don't know. We were what, 26, 7?
Yeah. Like she seemed like she looked 18. She
looked very young.
She looked so young. And so, and again, that's my own biases, but right away I was just like, I thought it would be like a 50-year-old like woman who's like had a lot of sex. You know what I mean? I don't know what I thought going in, but immediately I was like, I think I had my guard up. And then I just realized after a bit, I was like, I don't think this is actually what we need.
I mean,
what?
I don't even know what we were ready. I don't know what we were going into that session looking for.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going on in our relationship.
We thought it was, we're not having as much sex anymore, and that intimacy, it's got to be that. But when we actually got relationship coaching the next time around, which was like a few years later, it was all about self. It was all about our own things. And it's one reason I think our separating actually helped, because we got to work on ourselves before we came back together. We literally followed your method. And I didn't even realize that as we're saying it out loud. It was pretty cool. So it's incredible. I'm curious, like, have you found that happen with a lot of the couples you've worked with and you've started with, and like almost having to recondition their, like they think it's this, but you know it's this, and convincing them otherwise?
I don't think there's a lot of convincing that I need to do, because I dangle the carrot of great sex. I'm like, look, okay, if you want to have really great sex, what needs to start happening first is you need to start meditating. You need to start looking at your childhood trauma. All of these things impact your sex life. You need to start looking at why are you so fucking stressed out all the time.
Yeah, so true.
That is impacting sex.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also like the thing that you mentioned too, that I think is really important to call out, is a lot of couples think that their only issue is sex. They're like, oh, our relationship's so great, and the only problem is like our sex life isn't great. And anytime I hear that, I'm like, no, that's not the case.
We feel very called out, because we literally were like, we're best friends. We have so much fun together. Our communication's amazing.
We had so much love for each other. That was it.
Yeah, which is great.
We just had love for each other. There were no fights. We didn't hate each other at that point.
Yeah. Like
we had respect and love for each other, but everything was starting to fade away as the intimacy was.
It's so funny you say that. I think we literally said those exact words. So
yeah, up until I would have said it until the point, until now in hindsight, looking back and realizing what true communication is, or true intimacy is, and all that.
Yeah.
Now I can understand differently.
Yeah.
There's
it's like a canary in a coal mine.
Yeah.
Like it's a really easy issue to point to. It's like, oh, if the sex isn't great, like that is a very obvious thing. It's a way to tell that there are other things in the relationship that need working on. So if your sex isn't great, like I said, the canary in a coal mine. It's like, yeah, hey, this needs attention. Your relationship needs work. There's things that aren't functioning here correctly.
Yeah, for sure. It's just brought us down such a rabbit hole of all these personal, I mean, you've done, myself too, but you've had such a personal growth journey because of starting with that, or thinking that was the issue, you know? And so something you said right before we started recording that I wanted to bring up, because I think it'll spark a lot of this, is we both felt like we were living really separate lives. And we've talked about this on the podcast before, especially when both of our businesses started taking off at the same time. We both had really big growth years in our businesses in 2019.
Mine was prior, and then
yours was like 2018. Yeah, but you're still advanced in 2019 too. And well, anyway,
too much.
Yeah. Sometimes you can't handle what the success you have. And then you're like, oh, what do I do? And so we both had a lot of financial growth, but it was also the year that we were struggling the most intimately. And just communication wise, all of that. But I realize now, looking back, it was because we were really leading such separate lives, and we weren't communicating, and we were almost competing and not acting as a team and partners. And that's like been a common theme throughout all these couples combos interviews we've done. Like once they became a team, everything changed. And something you said was how you can put it, but basically what you said before, how when you focus on your,
when things are solid at home, you have more time to focus your energy elsewhere.
yeah, which it's kind of funny though, when you say that, like when things are solid at home, you can put your energy in other things, right? It's kind of like when someone is on a health journey and all they can focus on is their health journey because they're so obsessed with how they look, how they feel. It's like once that feels so natural, they can put their mind elsewhere and not focus on food so much or body or whatever it is. But for some reason at that time, it was the opposite.
No, we were only focusing on our business.
Yeah.
We would have gotten divorced.
That's true.
Like we didn't have a good marriage. We had a horrible marriage.
Yeah.
So all of our focus was on our business
Yeah.
and we were not doing anything. We were spending no time together. We were constantly separated. We would have gotten divorced.
Yeah.
Now having a healthy marriage,
spending
so much time and energy on that, working on that, now that things are solid, we can move elsewhere.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like I'm in a very busy season of work. He was just in a really busy poker season. And even though we're in these busy seasons, we still feel so connected. Like that's been a huge thing. So I'm curious, all that being said, I'm curious just to give a little backstory because this is like nervous for us, me at least, to talk about. It's very,
I feel fine.
You feel fine. I feel very comfortable talking about it. It's like an open book. He's like, ask me anything, I don't care anymore. But I'm curious for you, how have you seen the link between, especially female entrepreneurs, because that's mainly who we're talking to, self-pleasure, pleasure with others, and that equaling more abundance, more money, growing their business? I'm curious your experience with that.
So I want to just ask also a question to you guys, if that's cool. We can circle back to your question, but in what you shared, is that okay? Am I allowed to do that as a guest?
Full permission. I don't want to pressure you to interview, but you totally can.
I'm curious, like in what you were sharing, it was like, oh, well, when things weren't good at home, we had a lot of focus on our business. But when things now are good at home, we have a lot of energy for our business. And I think those are kind of different things. Like it feels like before you were escaping into your work because things at home weren't good. And now the energy that you're bringing to your work is not an escapist energy. It's I'm overflowing with love and I want to go forth and give to my business instead of escaping into it. And I'm curious what that difference feels like for you in your life.
Such a good distinction.
Yeah. So, I mean, the only one comment I'll make for that is just recently too, and this is the shift is probably starting right now, overall for us. And so I was in therapy and I was talking about how little time, like how I love playing poker, but I love being at home with my family and I have to leave to go play poker. And it's always that saying of you can only have a good marriage or have a good work, because it's hard for me to leave and go play poker for 10, 12 hours because I enjoy being at home and spending time here. So that was the only caveat to that as well, is like, as much as you have that time and energy, it's also difficult at times because you enjoy actually being at home and spending time with your family and doing that.
I think especially with what you do, it literally takes them to a casino where you're physically gone for hours and hours, which is different. I love that you said that distinction because that's so true. Because as he was saying it, I was like, wait, but we kind of did that, but it feels so different. I think for me personally, the difference where it was escapism for sure versus now it's like renewed energy is I kind of go back to the team thing. Mm-hmm. Now it's like my business goals are not my business goals. They're our business goals. So it's almost like us fueling each other, having a solid foundation and intimacy and all of that just fuels our dream together. Where before it almost felt like I was on a deserted island and we were like trying to pretend that. So that's one huge thing is like, it feels more like a team. And it's also just, I now feel like I can share the vision with him and get excited. Like I won't share super little details because some things you just don't need to know or care about, like, tiny things. But overall, I can, like, he's bought into the vision. He's bought into it. He knows that it's us working on it together versus me so separate. So that's been my biggest thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good question.
And it feels better. Like life feels better in general, overall.
So much better. Like so much better.
Yeah. I think so. when you take away the success of that we had in business in 2019 and just our pure happiness of life is really, that's the difference that I notice right now. And it's this will be a long-term success as we kind of marriage and work together.
Yeah.
I remember, I've said it before, in 2019, I thought I had digestive problems, diet problems. I was stressed. The minute we got separated, my stress released and I had no stomach issues. I was like, that's insane.
We were like, is it gluten?
I was trying different diets because my stomach, I woke up every day with pain in my stomach from stress.
Yeah, that's wild. I was like, oh, now we're separated and you have no stress anymore.
I'm free from Megan forever.
I was like, oh God, that's fine. Something I wrote down though, that I think, because yes, it feels better, but it's so much more than that. I feel full in a way that I've never felt. And I have I don't want to say full on attachment, because when I have a launch, I have goals. I want to meet them, of course, but I truly can say this with confidence. Like, if that doesn't happen, if I miss a goal or I fall short, I'm truly okay because we've got each other. Whereas before, my whole identity was in that. Now it's like, we're solid. And I just have this like present peace every day. It's so night and day different. I enjoy the business more. The business doesn't have as much pressure. It's more passion filled. The work I'm doing is excitement versus like, I got to be good at this thing because it's the only thing I'm good at right now since my marriage is sucking, So yeah, that was a great question.
Yeah.
We answered it.
I kind of.
You zigzag a lot.
I like the zigzags. They're good. Okay, I'll circle back. I can loop these things together.
I love You're great.
This is my therapy session all over. We extended my therapy sessions from 60 to 90 minutes because I go on these tangents, and she's always like, I'll loop them back together. And I'm like, oh.
I think that's also like one of the really powerful tools that a therapist has, or like what I use is like, I'm really good at seeing patterns of things that seemingly don't connect, but I can connect them together and I know how to make that work. So, so I'm going to loop this into people having more money or success is like, what good is having a lot of money if you're not happy?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't fucking matter. Like, ultimately, the reason why people try to get and acquire so much money is so that they can be happy, so that they can feel safe.
Yeah.
Those are like the two primary reasons: safety and happiness. And if you have those in your relationship already, everything in your business is surplus. So you're not out there grasping, trying, like there's not this energy of desperation, which is super repellent to anyone that sees your stuff. If you have a sense of stability, of safety, of abundance, of love in your home, and you're happy, all of that other stuff that comes in is like, oh, wow, this is all just bonus because I feel great. I don't need this. There's no scarcity there. You're coming to the table in your business from a place of abundance already when you have the abundance of love and safety in your home, in your relationship, in your sex life.
Yeah. I love how you put that. It's like you're wealthy, as corny as it sounds, you're wealthy in love. You are, you're wealthy in so many other parts of your life. And it's funny, like I've been having these flashes. Like in the morning, I was walking Luna this morning and I had this, like, literally, like I talked to her like she's a person, and I'll like just have a conversation with her sometimes. I hope other people do this with their dogs.
I don't know how many people do. You said you did the other.
Anyway, and I was just like, it's early in the morning. I was after my workout class, and I was just like so content, and whatever happens in the business, whatever goals we hit or don't, like there was just this moment of like such content, happiness. And a huge reason is we're solid. Even when we have arguments or fights or tough times or, things that we have to deal with, like we've established such a trust, and our intimacy has been a huge part of that. And that's kind of what I wanted to, if it's cool to loop back, to loop back is like a huge thing when our intimacy was pretty much nothing. I did not feel safe. And I remember saying this, like, I was like, yes, it's about pleasure, but it's not about like having orgasms. It's not about having sex a certain amount of times at all. For me, it was, I want to feel that safety and that security And I don't feel that if we're not physically intimate. I feel so much more connected. And so that alone, I have trust him so much more. I feel safe. I feel secure, all from prioritizing that intimacy. And that's been huge in me, just like you said, trying things, taking risks in the business, because I feel safe in this area. I feel safe to take risks. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, if you want to talk about insecurity, like how does insecurity and intimacy then show up in business? Like they're so deeply linked, right? If you feel like if you and your partner are not having consistent intimacy, there may be this underlying story that comes up. And I see this in my clients, that maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I'm not attractive, maybe I'm not lovable. And that creates this internal insecurity that then also shows up in your business. That, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I'm not lovable, maybe people won't want to buy my stuff, maybe like they won't say yes to me. And this doubt, the seed of doubt gets planted when there's not consistency and intimacy. And that insecurity, all insecurity is ultimately is a lack of safety. You see the word insecure, no security, no safety, right? That lack of safety, that insecurity totally pours over into how you show up in your business. Or you try to overcompensate, right? Yeah. The same thing we were talking about earlier. We're like, oh, okay, I feel secure. Let me go get all these other resources.
Totally. It's like one pendulum or the other. I had a client recently who had a very big realization, kind of with what you're saying, is she realized how much her relationship, her marriage, and the lack of support that she was feeling there affected her showing up in her business. Like she was downplaying everything. She was putting a disclaimer on everything. She was basically having very generic, bland content when she was hiding what she wanted to say, because she felt so judged by her partner and neglected physically and all these other things. And it was such a wake up call. And I think you hit the nail on the head. People don't realize how much your personal life, especially your relationships, affect you showing up in your business. It's like wild how much it affects it.
Yeah.
There was something before where we talked about this before we started recording, that you said is women, especially high-powered women who like think about themselves like that, whether they're on the way to that or already are embodying that, letting themselves receive, both in money and in pleasure. I'd love you to talk about that and like maybe some tactical ways that they can start receiving.
Oh my God. This is one of my favorite topics because I am right. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because it is both tangible and totally woo-woo, which is like where I sit in between the energetics and the stuff that you can't see, the magic stuff, and the tangible things and examples that you can actually see. And in the marriage of receiving, or like thinking about that, if you think about the way that a lot of people try to get success, right? You're forcing, like at the beginning, you're forcing, you're trying so hard to make it work. You're like, okay, let me do anything. Let me exert, let me effort, let me try. And that will always get you to a certain point of success by controlling everything.
Yeah.
But when you're on your way to that level of success, it'll peak out because there's only so much you can try. There's only so much energy you can exert. You have a capacity, you have a limit for that. And the opposite of that is that trying, that efforting, that outward energy is the energy of receiving. That is an endless resource. There is an endless amount of capacity and space in receiving. You can open yourself to an infinite degree. That is no cap. There's no limit on that. So when you hit a point where you're efforting, trying, controlling, what you really need to reach the next level of success is to actually let go of like that. There you hit a plateau, and then the next level is in surrender. It's in letting go of control and not trying so hard. And
that's so hard to do. I'm like control freak. It's hard.
Hey, it's not though. It's not though. Because do you have anything available that you could hold right now?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a pen.
Okay, can you hold that up right now?
Yes, like this.
Yeah. Like just hold on to it, grip it, try it really hard, hold on to it. Okay, now let it go. Oh my God, was that hard? It's not hard.
I was like, where's she going with this? For those of you listening, not watching, I was holding a pen and I let it go and it fell.
It's simple. It's actually really simple.
Good point.
Scary. It's not hard. It can be scary because there's an unknown element to what will happen when we let go.
Were you resistant to let go of the pen because you didn't know what was going to happen? I'm curious. I'm actually curious if you were like, wait, I don't want to let it go because it's going to
No,
fall.
I wasn't,
Oh, okay.
because I knew it would, because I knew where it would go. So that's such a good point. It's like when you are taking this risk, you don't know. What if I don't do that strategy the way I did it? What if I change up? What if I go on a new platform? All these things, you're like, I don't know if 1 + 1 = 2 in this scenario. It's so scary. But you said it's not hard, it's just scary. It's such an important distinction.
Yeah. And control is an illusion anyway.
Yeah. Like
We don't actually control as much as we think we do. And becoming aware of that is really helpful. It lets off some of that fear. So in the vein of receiving, the other thing that I want to do with the pen example too. So we can use another tangible thing.
Okay.
So basically, when you think about receiving, there's always something that's being trying to be being given to you, right? So for example, try to give Mike this pen. You can't give this to him until he takes it.
Oh, very true.
He took it, and now your hand is empty again, right? There's space. So you could give him another thing now. And then you couldn't give that to him until he takes it. Now he takes it. Now you can give him another thing.
Gosh.
I have endless things now.
Right? He has endless capacity to take in, right? But you can't give him another thing until he takes it. That's the essence of receiving. It's actually taking in what is wanting to be given to you.
Oof.
So all of the time, the universe is trying to give you things. It's like, here, take this gift. Here, take this thing. Your partner is trying to give you love. They're trying to give you compliments. They're trying to give you affection. They're trying to give you intimacy. And if you don't actually take that in, you can never receive more. And how bad does it feel if you try to give someone a gift and they're like, I don't really want that. I don't think I deserve that.
Yeah.
Awkward, uncomfortable, bad on both sides. It's awkward energy on both sides. So the receiving is an essential component of continuing the flow of energy. If you want more and more and more, you want to make more money, you want to make more joy, you want to make more love, you have to really be able to take in what's being given to you. And that's the receiving portion of it. It's actually letting it land in your system, actually feeling grateful for it.
Yeah. Oh, and that's something, it's funny. He smiled when you said receiving like compliments, because that's something he's actively working on and getting better at.
I have to express toxic positivity, my therapist said. I have to have random days of toxic positivity.
It's hard for him.
For other people. She's like, I need you to go to the grocery store, compliment 5 people randomly, like, and I was like, I don't know how to do that.
Struggles to receiving
same thing.
That too. Like I'm very great at giving out compliments, and especially to him all the time. And he's getting better at it.
Yeah.
But if I'll be like, your butt's so cute, or you're so handsome, he's getting a better.
Those I shrug off. It was more, I just don't
That's
think
true. It's more of a shrug.
I shrug those off. The other ones I just don't think they're necessary. It was always there's always space to be better is really what it was. It's like there's no need to compliment something. It was like this chase to perfection. A lot of it comes around money too. Money was my entire identity. And only recently has that shifted. And I remember, it's so simple. I don't know who it was. I read it, heard it somewhere, but it was like, you're chasing this money. And somebody asked me once, how much money do you want to make? And I was like, I don't know, $10 million. Like, what happens when you get $10 million? I was like, I'll probably want to get $100 million. And they're like, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your Yeah.
So there's almost, and the thing that's missing in that process is the acknowledgement every time a success happens. What really allows for fulfillment is every time something comes in, the way to take it in, the way to really receive is to be like, wow, it's like have a moment with that, feel how good that feels to be like, wow, I created this. I did that. Oh, gosh, thank you so much, me or whoever helped me with that. And like letting that really be felt, that moment of pride in yourself, gratitude. Like if you want tangible ways to learn how to expand your capacity to receive, the best way is just to say thank you more consistently.
Yeah. Oh,
I have been. That's
Yeah.
what it just like sit there and say
yeah.
thank you.
You're getting much better at
It's super awkward now.
it.
To sit there and just be like, thank you. I was like, this feels unnecessary.
I think something too, you just said is so many women I've coached, including myself. I think I've gotten way better. Luna was a launch present, a more expensive launch present, but
She also
yeah, she just entered. Is celebrating when you have wins. So many clients I work with, it's like they'll hit a big goal or they'll have a great month, on to the next. Like you said, stop and acknowledge what you just did and celebrate. It's instead of like bulldozing through all this. And I think especially in our industry, it's common to do that. Okay, on to the next thing. So are there any, I love just the thank you that you suggested. Is there anything else, any other maybe routines, habits, things, tools, resources you have to help people kind of start to open up to receiving more?
So I have two that come top of mind. One is touch related, it's sensory related. And receiving. So something to note also about receiving is that can only happen in the present. You can really only receive when you're fully present with what's so. And a really easy way to open yourself up to more receiving in the present moment and being present is to acknowledge your sensory pleasures in the moment and be in a sensory experience and like have and expand your capacity for pleasure in your senses. So just slowing down and giving yourself a hug is a really good way to expand your capacity for receiving, being present with your own touch. Like, oh, wow, it feels really good to have my hand on my heart. It feels really good to give myself a hug. It feels really good to just gently rub my fingers on my face. That's really nice. It's really supportive and nurturing. If I can let that in from myself, I can let that in from partners. The other, and like you can even do that with water, like when you're taking in a glass of water, like feel the texture of water and acknowledge what it's doing for your body. Wow, I'm becoming more hydrated right now. This texture of this water on my tongue feels really cooling. It's really nice. It lubricates my mouth in a positive way. Yeah. Lubrication, we're mentioning lubrication on a sex podcast. There we go. Had to put that in. And the other thing this game that I love to play, I want to credit this to one of my mentors, Annie Lala, and I expanded on it. So Annie Lala's version of this game is with your partner, instead of saying I love you, saying you love me. So anytime you notice your partner does something for you, shows affection to you, does an act of service, brushes your hair out of your face, opens the car door, makes you a meal, go, oh, you love me. Or you can say it in a sexy way, like, ooh, you love me. It can be playful or really sweet, like, oh, wow, you love me so much. You can say it in whatever tone resonates with you, but just that will allow you to have that moment to slow down and receive. And it feels so good to be acknowledged by your partner for the things that you do also.
Yes.
My take on that, my expanded take on that is playing the game with the universe, playing that game with God or higher self or whatever universal energy you want to acknowledge as giving to you. So for example, if I get a really good parking spot at the front of the grocery store, I'll be like, oh, you love me. Yeah, it's like I got the great parking spot. Right. Or if a client, comes out of nowhere and I just get a bunch of random money that I wasn't expecting, like, oh, wow, you love me. I'm so taken care of by the universe. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Even I thought last month we had money come in from his old business that was unexpected. And it was kind of like perfect timing. It was a month that our expenses were prepping for something else. So it was a little bit of a tighter month. And it was just like great timing. And that's like a perfect, we should have been like, Ticketmaster, you love me. like right when you said that, I was like, we should start seriously doing that for those little things. And it just, I think it helps you too. As simple as it sounds, it helps you step into gratitude. Like, wow, I really do have so much more abundance. And, when you feel in that, you're going to attract more of it.
And that sense of safety we were talking about earlier too, right? If you notice all the ways that you're loved by the universe all the time, like that gives you a sense of safety. It's reassurance, like, oh wow, I'm taken care of all the time.
I love that. Oh, that's huge. I feel like we can go so many directions. So I want to kind of close it out with, because again, this is like when we have the next podcast, we're going to need you to come on and talk about even more like sexual things. But I'd love to talk about the feminine masculine embodiment specifically in entrepreneurship with women. I've shared before on this podcast, but when I was in that year of growth, I also was so in my masculine most of the time. And I think it was a huge reason that we bumped heads a lot and we didn't have attraction to each other. And we went through this pretty intensive 3-day masculine feminine embodiment program. We did it a couple of times, but the first time it unlocked so much, and all we did was eye gaze pretty much. And I danced a lot. I did a lot of feminine dance, which you do so much. I love watching you do that. And it just changed so much in also how I showed up in my business. So I know you're so in this realm. So for people who aren't maybe familiar with it, if you could kind of identify the differences and then how women can kind of take advantage of both in their business. Does that make sense?
100%. So I personally prefer using the terms yin and yang because I think masculine and feminine people assign gender to that. And it's really a totally non-gendered thing.
Yeah.
Feminine or yin energy is the energy of openness, of receptivity, of rest, of like an expandedness. It has this spaciousness to it. It's the opening. And masculine or yang energy is what penetrates that space. It's the action, it's the doing, it's the forward momentum, it's the energy that comes up from and towards something. It has a direction, whereas yin energy is non-directional. It's just everything, everywhere, all at once, all the time. And so how I see those things working really well in business, well, first, the dysfunctional, they can get out of whack, right? They get a little bit fucked up and a little bit into unhealthy spaces really easily because of the way our society is set up. Yang energy can become overworking, it can become harsh, it can become greedy, it can be dominant and aggressive when it's too far gone and too far expressed. And yin energy also can be really floaty. It can be lazy. It can extend into the space that is lethargy and non-movement if it's not tended to correctly. So the healthy expression of these is it's really, really important, and they complement each other really well. It's why the yin and yang symbol, it exists the way that it does. It's because both in perfect harmony and balance support life.
Yeah.
Need both rest and spaciousness and openness and receptivity and directionality and forcefulness and a movement. And they complement each other. And so how those things work really well in business together is that the yang provides vision, structure, clarity, direction, and focus. And the yin energy is what to do, really. Opening up capacity for creative downloads to come in, letting that vision come through, letting the intuition come through, and then using the yang energy to direct that vision into action. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
So it's tangible, more, I'm going to bring that down another level into more descriptive words from the energy space. When you rest, when you take space without input, so you take a nap, you meditate, go for a walk, you're in the shower without any input, right? Those are the times when you're open to creative ideas. You are also rejuvenating yourself. There's a refreshing energy that comes in from that restfulness. And then the creative ideas come in, you get those downloads, and then you, with yang energy, put that into action, create steps, create structure, create routine where that can be directed towards the goal, towards something specific.
That reminds me of kind of the phrase, there's freedom in structure. In a sense. And also it's funny, like a couple weeks ago, I was at a retreat and we were doing a breath work. And for some reason, breath work, I always liked it, but it never, nothing like ever downloaded during it for me. And I was like, man, am I doing this wrong? Everyone's having all these downloads. And it finally hit, and I had a download for our new brand and all this. And it just like flooded through me because, like you said, I was in the yin. Yeah. Right. Yes. And really just open, and there was no plan, and so present. I was like, oh, I need to do this more often. And it just hit me like, wow. And I think that's such a hard, it's a hard thing for us to grasp. Like you said, it's easy, but sometimes it's scary. It's kind of that control related thing. Cause you think, oh, I want to make more money. I need to go do another launch. I need to do this. I need to do that. Try this strategy. When really it's like, you need to go for a walk. You need to journal. You need to like take time off, and all the downloads are come. And I think it's a lot. It's hard for people to grasp that until they experience it sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, that is what is required for growing in the direction that is in alignment with your soul.
Yeah.
Like you can totally grow in any direction through forcing. You can totally do that. You can pick someone's model of the world and copy it and duplicate it and have success. But to have success that's authentic to you requires space and time to listen to what you actually want.
Yeah.
What does that inner voice say? That is you.
Yeah. So true. Even yesterday I was talking to some girlfriends, and I have this launch plan laid out. I'm really excited about it. And they were like, oh, why aren't you just like launching at the end of your class next week? Like that just makes sense, but I don't feel ready, and I have the plan and I know it's the plan that I want to do. But I started to go, they're really successful. They know what they're doing. Maybe I should get everything together for next week. And I was like, go to sleep, wake up. No, I'm going to stick with the plan because it's true to what I want to do and what I know I need. And I think in this world, it's so easy, like you said, to copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And we need to try to find like a little bits or fragments of each thing that creates something that feels really good to us, which is easier said than done, but worth the effort for sure.
The last piece we'll say on this, because I want to tie it back to in the bedroom too.
Yes, please.
Like if yes, please. Let's talk about sex a little more. Yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about wanting to create more intimacy with your partner, it requires there to be clear polarity. So what that means is one person is holding the yin energy and one person is holding the yang energy. And doesn't really matter who's holding which, but if a woman is constantly in her business in the yang energy, the bedroom can be a really good place to practice taking on the opposite and letting your partner take on the yang energy. Let them be the direction, let them take control, let them take the lead. Try and teach if they need help with that. There are plenty of really great teachers out there that can teach them how to do that. And usually when given the opportunity, when a woman really drops into receptivity and openness and restfulness and all of her feminine yin power, her masculine partner will step up in that space. There's a natural gravitation towards the pole. So if one person takes the pole, it's usually really natural for the other person to take the opposite. So if the woman wants her partner to take control more, my question is like, where are you trying to control? Let go of that in the bedroom so that they can't take control if you're gripping so hard. Like, let that go.
Yeah. I think that's something that I always wanted from him, but I was doing exactly that. I was like, I want you to take control, but I'm going to take control so you can't take control.
Totally. And control, you only try to control what you don't trust. That's really important to note, is that control is a mechanism of lack of trust. So you can go about that either way. You can either give up control, or you can say, okay, I trust you, whatever route feels better to you, to your partner. And when a partner feels like they are trusted, they rise to that, open up to that energy.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, our 2 sessions ago in our coaching, I was like, I want more of this one thing from Mike. And they asked, I think it was just like touching in just the middle of the day, like, just like,
Yeah.
spank my butt or hold me or whatever it is.
Megan's in need of constant touch.
Physical touch is my number one love language.
You and Luna both, huh?
We really just want to be touched all the time. She is me. And
You need to do with Luna. Luna was just doing exactly. She asked, she does what exactly what you're gonna say right now.
Yeah. And so our coaches were like, well, how much are you giving that to Mike? And I was like, I'm not like, I'm not touching him. And do you want to? Yeah, totally. Like the more you give of what you want, the more you're going to get it too. And so that's been something that was like rocked my world. And I was like, oh, and so same, it's like, if one person wants to have the other, if you want him to control, I do need to let go of that and trust, which it is hard, but it's like you said, it's scary. It's not hard. It's scary. I think you put it perfectly before.
We just lost our ways. I mean, going back to that, I think of 2019, just so.
It was a clusterfuck. It was a year. It's just, I hope people, when they're hearing this, like we had such a tumultuous year. We had no intimacy. I was in my masculine 24/7. We were everything that you're saying, right? And now we have such a renewed marriage. Like it is totally possible to come back. You just both have to be willing to do the work, and yeah.
Question for you. What was the first step in intimacy that you took to get closer?
Hold on.
Actually, I don't want to share all the details, but I will say, because I'm still getting comfortable talking about this stuff.
I don't care. I don't know what you're saying.
Doesn't care. He's like such a book, which is great. The first step that we did take, which again is so in line with your model, is self-pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you say that?
Yeah. I mean, definitely one of them. That was one I was going to bring up. Yeah, I think that's a good one.
Is like, it was self-pleasure and then
self-pleasure together,
and then pleasure mapping, where it's like figuring out what each of us wants, but in more of and this is something that really helped us in more of a like detective strategic way.
Yeah.
Versus this is going to be sexy. It wasn't. It was like a little awkward and a little like we wear blindfold so that it's not as uncomfortable, which is game changing for us.
Love the blindfold.
The blindfold was the best.
I mean, the first one we did the would want won't list. We did
your likes and limits list, basically.
Yeah.
We'll definitely link that down below because it's so good, and figured out what we want. But one of the biggest things when we were doing the self-pleasure and then this is kind of acknowledging that it's not going to always feel sexy. And sometimes it will feel like you're checking off a list, but making that time and scheduling that time and doing that, it starts now. We have spontaneity. We almost had to like do it that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense. Yeah. I think the steps that you listed totally are perfect for anyone, right? Like there's a focus on self. There's an understanding of what is my body like from me? How do I give that to myself? So my partner doesn't become an orgasm dealer that's holding my pleasure hostage, right? Like I need, and then you have to like go and get your fix and you're like an addict and you're like, please give me an orgasm. Otherwise, right? Like no, first take ownership of your pleasure, of your body, of understanding what you like. And then becoming curious about your partner because there's differences. Your bodies are not the same. And that sense of curiosity of like knowing, okay, what does this button do? What does this button do? This might not feel that good. And this doesn't have to be a sexy thing. It can literally be like, what is the pleasure here? Where does it go? That's a brilliant approach. And I'm really glad you guys did that.
Good.
Yeah, everything was so. I think it took me a while to get past. Every one of our sexual experiences were drunk prior to 2018 or so, 2019. And they were all these longer sessions, non-connective, just sex, penetrative sex. And then it turned into just my understanding that there's more to that. Not every session is there just is more. There's more to that. we could expand on it another time, but
sometimes it's going to be we just need to connect and schedule this in, and it's going to be more formulaic, and sometimes it's going to be that very spontaneous thing. And I know you've talked about this, and just following you're so intentional with that, and we just started to realize too, to kind of loop it back to business. I'm scheduling all these calls, I'm scheduling launches, I'm scheduling content, but yet I wasn't scheduling intimacy with my partner. And once we started to do that, it just changed, because it was actually on the calendar and became a priority for us, which was really huge.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
It's been a journey. It's been such a journey. This is amazing. We could talk about this all day, and so much more, which we'll have to have you on for round 2.
Yeah.
The new pod.
This last little bit is a teaser for round 2.
It totally is, which I love. But I would love you to talk about the community and where people can find more about it, because I think everyone's ears hopefully are perked, and especially if they're wanting to really have more of that self-pleasure and pleasure with others to increase their abundance in their business. I know this can be a great place for them to go.
Yeah. So I have so much education, like so many courses, so much content. And the community is a membership where you can get access to all of that, plus calls with me. So it's a women only community for now. And you come in the space, you get 2 calls a month with the group. We're doing challenges, you're getting to message me. And then you get access to all my educational content. And some of those courses are partner-based. So if you're in a relationship, there's access to that too.
I love it. And it's CUMM.
It's GUMM.
I was gonna make the comment. But
Oh, it's so genius. I love it.
Unity.
Yes, it's perfect. And you really do follow that method, like the pleasure with self, connection with self, pleasure with self, connection to others, sex with others. And I think following that framework, it's in the infinity sign, right? It just makes it so. For me, stuff like that, and I think a lot of women listening will agree, I like a step-by-step. And sometimes this realm feels very like, just feel it. And I'm like, but what does that mean? I don't know what that means, And so I think, like you said, you have this really beautiful way of teaching. You have this blend of woo-woo and trust and all of that with some of the strategic. And I just think it's such a tangible way for people to let go, surrender, welcome, and more. So I just thank you for creating it, because it's amazing. So
Thanks.
yeah, of course.
My pleasure.
Yeah. I received that. Besides the community, where can everyone find out about the community and follow you?
Yeah, I hang out mostly on Instagram and TikTok. So my Instagram is just my first and last name, Hannah Deindorfer, and my TikTok is I am Hannah the Red.
That's amazing. Isn't that good? Yeah, I'll link both of those below. You have such great videos. You have so much valuable content on both of those platforms. So we'll make sure we link that. But thank you so much, my friend, for being here and kind of popping our cherry. I feel like that's pretty awkward for talking about this, because it's uncomfortable for me a little bit, but I really think it's important to start talking about it a little bit. So thank you. I appreciate you. And you guys got to meet for the first time.
we met.
Oh, you have met.
Yeah.
Have you met?
Was it
Not in person, but
You haven't met her.
No,
in
yeah,
person.
wow, that's right. No, because I knew you were there when Rachel, right? When you
Yes,
yeah.
we were hanging out, but you didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't meet her.
No,
That
I
was
guess yeah, that's right. You were supposed to. I forgot. I was like, oh yeah. I was like,
no,
actually.
you were supposed to meet. That's why. But anyway, I'm glad you guys got to meet. Thank you
Yes.
for, again, just holding this space for us, even though technically we were interviewing you. I felt very safe. So I appreciate you.
yeah, my pleasure. I'm excited to continue this conversation. My intention is that in the next conversation, I get to ask you guys more questions and people get to learn from your experience.
I'm down.
Sure.
We'll do it. I just gotta be mentally ready.
You finished it for the-
But it's okay. I feel like we ripped the Band-Aid. I'm like, all right, let's just go.
Jill,
Let's go for it.
the podcast with Jill was, I guess not.
We didn't go, we definitely shared more on this. So, but I'm excited. Everyone, make sure you go follow Hannah and check out the community. It's so incredible. And thank you, my friend. It was great to see you, and see y'all in the next episode. Bye.